3.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, July 20th, 2021 DVMUG Zoom meeting, of course, in virtual. Our meeting today is going to cover some new information and some old information. Of course, we start out with questions and answers, and I'm sure there will be plenty of those. And following that, we'll discuss any late news that Apple may have been releasing. An interesting discussion by Mark Ellis on why Apple Notes excels with nothing, there's no pun intended with Microsoft Excel. iPhone 12 now or wait for the 13. And in basics, how to scroll plus tips and tricks. What is safe mode? What is AirDrop and how does it work? And save the date for August 18th. Big news coming. So here we go. Let's go to questions and answers.
I have the quickest question you're going to get today.
Yeah.
How do I increase the print size on the Chase website when I go to print my Visa bill on Chase? It's very tiny for some strange reason. I don't even know where to start.
And you're in Safari?
I'm in Safari.
Can you adjust
look
the
at your print
fonts?
dialog box.
The what?
Look at your print dialog box and make sure you're not scaling it down. I have a option to scale up or down on my print dialog.
But
Is that on the
he's
machine
not printing,
itself?
he's viewing.
What's that?
No, he's talking about sending it to the printer.
Oh,
Yeah.
to the printer. Oh, I thought you were talking about how it looked.
No, I want to
Yeah,
be able
Carol.
to print it so I can read it better.
Yeah,
and-
Carol's got the solution. Repeat it, Carol. I think I talked over you.
Oh, that's all right. My printer has a print dialog box, and one of the options is to scale the document down or up. And there's an option that just says, fill the space. So make sure
Yeah,
that's not scaled down. It gives me a
so
preview
check
of what
Scale to fit page.
right.
Yeah, I'm going to try and find that
Or-
on my printer.
Is it small on the screen before you print it?
That's a good question. I think it's larger on the screen before I print it.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, then it's probably, Carol's probably put her finger on the issue there, Scott.
Okay. I'll look for that. I kind of looked around on the printer and I haven't. There's a home button and then it says common settings. The only thing on
No,
there
when
is
you do your command print,
Mhm.
then your print dialog box comes up, and for my printer, it shows me a preview. And if the document's scaled way down, it shows the page with a little bitty document on it.
Okay.
So I've got a Canon printer.
That's what I have.
I would think they're similar. Yeah. So when you go to your print dialog box, you've got a lot of options. The scale may not even show because you might be in, paper handling option or something like that.
I'll try
So you
that.
have to try those things.
Okay.
It may not show the original print dialog box. You may have to expand it.
Right. You may have to dive into it a little bit deeper and click on some of the options like printer setup, printer instructions, page layout. There's some commands in there, even where you can turn on or off your duplex printing or turn on or off color and set print quality. There's a million little settings in there, but they're not hidden too deeply, usually 1 click deep, 2
All
clicks
right.
deep.
Good. I'll try it.
Yeah.
Okay. And it looks to me, now I didn't check since about noon, maybe before then, for any questions on the bulletin board. John, were there any?
I'm looking right now. I don't think there was. Yes, no, Russ. Is Russ here? Russ Erickson. So he says, I read an email on my phone, 6 years old, and it frequently then disappears, not to trash, cannot be found. Any idea why? He's not here, so we need more information. A 6-year-old email should be hard to find. That'd be way down in your list. How do you originally get to it? I don't know. He's not here. Move on.
What's his hurry?
Well, you know, I find that on the bulletin board. Once I read an email, not all of them, but when I read some emails and then I go back to find them, they're gone.
Usually you just up at the top, you do the filter and you find, or do a Command F and find, then you can find it. I do that. I see that too. I go to look at, I can't find it in the list. Now I do
Yeah.
a search and it shows up.
Yeah, you got to figure out what the keyword is.
First
though.
class is
Yeah.
a little buggy. The good
Yeah.
news is I put Monterey Beta on the M1 at the office, and first class, the icons issue is gone. It works fine.
Whoa,
Isn't that weird?
terrific. Yeah.
Lost email is the Casper effect.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
who said that?
It's the Casper effect, you know, Casper the ghost.
Oh, Casper. Yeah.
It would be pretty easy to find if you just do a search and you knew the person's name, you should be able to find it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else got any questions? Otherwise, we'll be finished by 4 o'clock.
Can it be about telephones? I have
Sure.
a Spectrum. I have a Spectrum cable phone here that goes through my modem, and I get so many spam calls all day long. And they
No
deny
more robo.
I
You
have,
have
the- oh,
you
yeah, I
have a
have-
cable phone, you can install No More Robo. Go check and see if it's
yeah.
available.
Well, I supposedly have that, but I still get calls all day long. A lot of them start with V. I know they know those are spam. They don't do anything about
No,
it.
no. V means verified.
Yeah.
That's
What?
the new shake and stir thing that the FCC and the government said, you guys got to do this to stop these spam calls. And the V means that they're verified as a viable number.
But
If that's
And-
the case, then
You
I'm
can
they're
manually
not.
getting a
block
lot of
those.
verified spam.
Means nothing.
Yeah, no.
I have no more robo and it works not as well as it used to, but it does get
Yeah.
some of them. But
Yeah.
I still get,
Yeah.
most of the V calls are spam. They're still
Well-
getting through no more robo.
They're not supposed to be, let's put it that way. There are people who have a legitimate listing in Comcast or Spectrum's or Bell Telephone, whoever's directory they exist in. They're supposed to be verified. So the spammers have found a way to spoof real numbers and make it appear to be real numbers. And that's just disgusting. I'm starting to get them at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning now too.
Oh
And
my
that's
God.
infuriating because I like to sleep a little late now.
I talked to one place that they called their office and they spoofed the same number they called.
Well, sometimes they use my phone number on
Yeah,
their spoof.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But-
they've
and
done that
some
to
of
me
them-
too.
Some are labeled spam risk, and the Spectrum can't tell those are spam. I think they do label it. But it used to be that you could not accept a call if it didn't have a user ID on it, and they would have to push *82 to get through. And-
right.
And they don't allow that anymore. Why can't we have that anymore?
I wish
I
I
have to-
knew.
I have to dial that when I call one of my friends.
I have to
Oh,
do
Well,
that. I have to do that to call home on my cell phone. I have to do *82, otherwise this down won't, yeah, I can't get the calls through.
I wonder if
Wow.
the setting expires because my phone has that setting also, but I haven't run into that in a
That's
long
supposed to
time.
be if you have caller ID outgoing turned off, they don't know your phone number and you have to do the star
Yeah.
to get
So,
through.
How do
If
you
you
change
wait,
that?
I would
It
suggest you
doesn't
turn
apply.
caller ID back on so people
Yeah.
know that it's
Yeah.
really a number, it's you.
Did
And
you-
then you're in their address book and then you'll get through and they'll know who you are.
Yeah.
Caller
Oh,
ID.
Bill-
Carol, are you a Comcast customer?
Yeah,
Carol, okay, there's a little red book that came with your Comcast phone, and it's got all the instructions in there on how to do that.
it's not a
And if they-
Comcast phone.
No, well, you have Comcast service, right?
Yeah.
That's what I
yeah.
meant by Comcast phone. Yeah.
You should
There's
also-
a
I
red
don't
book
even
that came
remember.
with it.
You should also
Well-
know that caller ID block does not work on an 800 number or a non-800 number that rolls over to an 800 number.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What was
You
that?
can pick one of those books up down at the Comcast office, or in your case, Janet, down at the Spectrum office.
Or just
And,
do
Oh,
that.
I've talked to them on the phone and they don't give any help. They said the FCC said as of July 1st that they were supposed to filter out blah, blah, blah. I said, well, it's after July 1st, but
Yeah.
I don't, it's just
Yeah,
terrible.
it's terrible. I'm getting 5 or 6 by noontime many times. But
Yeah,
if I see it's 800 service or something, I'll just pick up the phone and hit answer and hang up. And I just don't even let it ring more than once once I see the ID.
Russ came in after we answered his question, which we didn't answer correctly because the question said that the phone was 6 years old, not the email.
Really? The phone?
Russ, I get emails, briefing from the New York Times every day, and they disappear. I read or not read them, but they automatically disappear after 24 hours. I believe it's a new method.
Okay,
So
so the
like
question is,
sometimes I want to go back and read the puzzle or something from a couple days ago, but it's gone.
I didn't know that.
And I also get another notice from something on a server. And I get those notices daily when something action is coming up and they delete themselves.
And I bet that those could be recovered if you went to web-based mail.
so.
Also,
his-
you could save them if you archive them, I suspect.
The
Mhm.
question is, his phone is 6 years old, but he's asking about the email on his 6-year-old phone.
And the trouble is,
Well,
okay.
does the email disappear on his computer? The same email?
He's trying to answer he's trying to talk. You're talking over him.
It does not disappear on my computer, thank goodness. But on the phone, even things from my friends will occasionally, I'll read them over and they'll disappear. And I can't locate them anywhere.
Okay, so there's a setting in mail that says only show unread messages. So as soon as you read it, it will disappear. You need to turn that, you need to check to see if that is turned on.
Thank you, I'll check that.
That would mean
Yeah.
every message that you read would disappear.
Yeah, they don't,
Yeah.
just part of them.
Now, to get there, Russ, you go to settings
Yeah,
and go to mail. And in mail, you have several choices, little switch-like things. One of the things you can do is turn on most recent messages on top. And where is that other one? Ask before deleting.
right, that's on.
Okay,
I
that's
think
on.
it's just, I think it's just in the mail viewer. There's a button up at the top. It says show unread or something like that.
Yeah, let's take a peek.
Says show to CC labels. That's not it.
I don't find it when I look at my
Okay,
mail settings.
down in the bottom right, there's a little round button with 3 little things on it, and when you tap it, it hides all the unread messages. So if you read them,
Bottom right,
all-
bottom right of
all-
where?
okay, in my phone, down on the bottom, you'll see a little round blue button. And if you tap that and you've read all your messages, you'll have a blank inbox because you've read them all. So you tap that and see if that's the case. It's
I
called,
don't have that.
are you in your mailboxes?
Yeah, I'm looking at I'm in mail. And in the bottom right corner, I only have a
Bottom
new
left.
message.
Bottom left.
I have nothing in bottom left. Blank.
Are you in this view here?
I can't see it. All inbox. Ah, yeah, there it is. On all inboxes.
You have to go in the view that shows the list of emails.
Yeah, on the bottom left, there's a round circle. It's white if you're showing everything, and if you're hiding it, it turns blue when you tap it. It changes color. Filtered
There
by.
you go.
Yeah, it turns off the unread messages. Could be
There
that.
you go.
That's easy to do. You can do that on the Mac too. People used to call me, I don't have any mail. Well, you tap that button on the Mac and all of a sudden you got no mail, it's blank. If you read it all, some people have 30,000 unread messages, could tap that and they wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah.
You think that's a joke? I see people with 30,000 unread messages. You can't
Oh,
read those
yeah.
in your entire lifetime.
My daughter's like that. She's got stuff back to 1998.
No, I had somebody who like that and said, why don't you hire a college student to come in here and unsubscribe from all these things and delete them or something? She says, yeah, I did. And they worked for half a day and they quit. It's really tedious.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
Okay, what else?
I had
I
a
got some-
strange thing happen to me today. I was supposed to meet my friend for lunch and she sent me a text and I thought that's weird. I have the Apple Watch, I had the phone in there and I thought, I didn't see any text. So she sent it to my home number, I think.
Yeah, your home
And
phone
so-
number doesn't do text.
And so I tried it. I sent it to my home number. So it shows up green, like not blue like an iPhone. So I don't think she realized I didn't get it. Fortunately, she called me. I would have gone all the way to San Ramon to meet her for lunch based on this text that I didn't get.
Yeah, just as people have your home phone number in their address book and they'll send a text to you and you're never going to get it.
I know. I sent her back an email and said, I don't know if you have my cell phone number. But I didn't know that was even possible.
It doesn't tell
yeah.
you. It doesn't bounce and say sorry undeliverable.
No, it didn't
It just
bounce.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
I know.
I think it's maybe because we have a voice over internet protocol phone. You don't have a plain old telephone from AT&T. You probably have a cable service or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I do. Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you send it to an Apple device with iMessage, you do see a little delivered. But if you send an SMS, to a non-Apple phone, I don't think it has maybe the capacity to know whether it was delivered or not.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That was
Yes,
weird though.
I had one the other day that I discovered, and I think I found the answer. I correspond with a friend on email, and every time I sent an email, it went into the trash, no matter which email address I used. And I had my friend make sure that all my email addresses was in the contacts list. And yes, it was. So I was over there yesterday working on some stuff. And I said, let me see what your contacts look like. And yeah, my addresses were all there. And then I said, let's look at previous recipients. And there was my name 3 times. So I deleted my name from previous recipients, and the problem seems to have disappeared. I have no reason to understand why that worked or how it worked, but it seems to have worked. So if some of you run into that issue, you might want to have your friend go into previous recipients and delete your name there, and then it'll start afresh.
Your message is going into the trash or the junk?
Junk,
Uh-huh.
going into junk
Bec-
mail.
Well, it's a good idea because mine, I have a friend too, my messages all go into her junk.
Yeah, so have her go into mail and then go up under Windows on her computer, on her Mac, and look for previous recipients and delete your name. And be sure your email address is in her contacts book.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, so check that out. So what else? Okay. Quick look at the news. Well, there's even news since I prepared this.
Yep.
Apple came out with updates yesterday for iOS, Watch, and Apple TV.
Yep.
Pardon me?
That's correct. And also today there was Safari updates for Catalina and Big Sur.
Mojave, I think. Oh, was it Big Sur as well?
Oh, no, Mojave, you're right.
Yeah, Mojave, I thought.
Yeah, Mojave and Catalina Safari updates.
Yeah. So the downside is that people began to have some issues with the updates. Boy, my mind is failing me. Help me out, John. I forget what the issue was with it, but
somebody already, if you search for an update and you Google, you'll always find there's always somebody has some problem somewhere.
Well, the stuff I looked up today, they said this has been a public beta for some time now, and it's hard to understand how this couldn't have been discovered. And they were postulating that maybe Apple, after doing a beta, decided to drop in some code that nobody had ever tested and just see how it worked. So what were the issues though? Ken Marks, do you remember? Are you still with us?
Yeah, there were some problems with Safari when it came out along with the security update. And the issue arose depending on which order you installed the two of them.
Oh, they had that problem once before in Mojave, and if you just left all the boxes checked and did them, it was fine. But if you did a custom and where you checked a box and did one, and then checked a box and did it, and didn't do them in the right order, it was a disaster.
They didn't come out simultaneously, and the bad order was the one where the first one came out, you installed it. The second one came out, you installed it. Had you waited and done them in the opposite order, it would have been fine. It's just, I put in the Safari update today on Mojave, and so far so good.
Yeah,
But I waited a little bit to see if there were any notes on it. There haven't been. So it seems like it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just exercise caution. Of course, I'm one of those that goes headlong, hell bent for leather. I put them all in last night. I just have discovered no problems whatsoever. I did my watch, my phone, and my iPad. There's nothing so far for my Mac because I'm in Big Sur, but it seems okay to me.
They've been okay so far with me. I did the iPad and the phone, and they've been okay.
Good.
I mean,
it would be better if you sat a little closer to your mic, Ken, because you got a big echo in that room.
No, I did the phone and the watch. There wasn't one for the iPad.
Yeah.
Really?
That was the. Maybe you're right.
Wasn't it 14.7 for the iPad like there was for the phone?
No, 14.7 for the iPad.
There was not.
I'm on 15 beta on the iPad.
How is it?
It's fine.
Good.
No problem.
I did the updates too, and I didn't have a problem on my watch and my phone.
Yeah. Well, John's talking about the beta.
Yeah, I know.
Beta seems fine.
Oh, you did the beta on yours too, Alice?
No.
Oh.
There's also an update for the
It's
Apple
the same one
TV.
you did, Rick. The same one you did when I got the message. I just updated it.
Apple TV has an update as well.
Yeah.
And that one worked okay.
Now, what else is new? Apple is discontinuing all the space gray accessories. These were originally released with the iMac Pro. You can still buy the space gray stuff while the supplies last, but they're discontinuing it. The thinking is that they're making the big move to color now. And so if you want to have gray, get it now before you get stuck with pink.
Yeah.
Or yellow or orange or whatever else colors there. Who knows? Maybe it'll be cantaloupe and honeydew next time. I don't know.
Eggshell green.
Yeah. Also, the iPhone 12 mini production is being halted. They posit that maybe it's due to low sales of the 12 mini. And moreover, Apple, I think we mentioned this last week, John broke the news. Apple released the MagSafe battery pack for use with the iPhone 12 lineup for $99. I remember too, there were no statistics with it or specifications, but I think it is 1.4 or 1.46 amp hours, a milliamp hours, if I'm not mistaken. So that's the news I have for today. Any other contributions that
Can I ask a question?
that come to mind? Yeah.
I've
Hi,
been
Jennifer.
away a few weeks. I have automatic updates on my phone and things, but you guys are talking about updates. I see I have it, but it doesn't say, hey, you have an update anywhere. I don't have a little red tag anywhere.
It'll happen in due course.
Oh, okay.
They don't put a red tag on your settings anymore when there's a iOS update. They haven't for a long time. You have to open settings and then go to general and then go to software update and you'll see it in there.
Or listen to you guys and then you know.
Yeah, well, see, we do that.
They don't put the red dot on the iOS settings anymore.
Yeah.
No, but we do that. We look all the time for that stuff. You don't have to, because I suspect that in good time, it will automatically update you. Much like my Rokus, I've got 5 Rokus in this house, and it took a period of about 3 weeks for all of them to update to the newest operating system. I think they just have so much bandwidth and so many millions out there that they just go through them, who knows, by serial number or whatever. But I believe if you just sit still, it'll happen.
That makes sense.
Or you can do it manually.
Thank you.
Okay, you got a new haircut.
It's still the same color though.
Okay, anyway, so let's see if I can make this thing move to the next page. There we go. Mark Ellis is going to talk to us about Apple Notes and why it excels. Oh, hang on. I forgot. I got to turn on sound. Oh, bear with me. There we go. Oh, come on.
There are so many different notes apps out there, it's difficult to know which one to go for. I used to be a massive Evernote user, but recently I've started using Apple Notes, and I think you might be missing out on something. Hello and welcome back to Mark Ellis Reviews. Thank you for subscribing if you have. If you haven't, just click that button. There were lots of quite exciting things announced at WWDC this year. One of them, weirdly, was Notes. You can't get too excited about a Notes app, can you? Well, actually, perhaps you can. I think most of us take notes of some form most days. That could be for work, it could be for personal reasons, it could be for your hobby, it could be for a whole number of different things. But we have to get our thoughts and ideas down somewhere. And you might be the sort of person who uses pen and paper and something like field notes, which are fantastic. Or you might pick up your iPhone and use Notes. Now, when iOS 15, iPad OS 15 and macOS Monterey are launched later this year, we're going to get a new version of Notes, and it includes some quite cool things actually. So one of them is Quick Notes, which is this ability to very quickly draw up a quick note either with your Apple Pencil or just anywhere within the operating system. You can tag people on Notes if you want to collaborate with people on Notes, and there's an activity view so you can see exactly what has happened to a particular note. But I'm quite an inconsistent note taker, so I do switch between things like the Field Notes pad, my Big Pucker A4 pad, my iPhone, my iPad. I'm terrible. If you saw the way that I structure and deal with notes, you'd run for the hills. But I am what I'd call a short-term note taker, so I don't really write notes that I refer back to, for months and months. It tends to be stuff that I need to know maybe for today, tomorrow, or from last week. I discovered that I was using a tool called Evernote, which was costing me money. It was getting bigger and bigger, more and more bloated. I just wasn't using all of its features. And without thinking, I had started using Apple Notes more mainly on the iPhone, but also on the Mac. I really haven't looked back. I've cancelled my Evernote subscription, and I now just use Apple Notes. So very quickly, the reason I stopped using Evernote, firstly, it's a brilliant app. It's an absolute powerhouse of a note-taking app. But for me, that's part of the issue, and every release that seemed to come out for Evernote seemed to get more and more bloated, more complicated, and it went well beyond my needs for note-taking. And in fact, the only reason I paid for it, there were two reasons I paid for it. One of them was for multi-device syncing, so that I could get my notes on as many different devices as I liked. And the other one is that with the free version of Evernote, you can't access your notes offline, which, okay, fair enough, but I had to pay to get that ability. But the rest of the features you get, includes things like annotating PDFs, searching for text inside Office documents, custom templates. Doesn't excite me. For you, that might be useful. I love giving money to third-party developers, but sometimes Apple does have the better solution purely because they're so simple. And that's exactly the case with Apple Notes. So let's get into the 5 reasons why I think it is superb. So if you look at the design of Apple Notes, it's about as simple as it comes. You have on the left-hand side a pane where you can set up all your folders and stuff like that. And on the right-hand side, the note. It's as simple as that. It doesn't get any more complicated. Lots of white space, lots of very clear affordance, and basically that means you know what to click on straight away. And that's another great thing with Notes. I think Apple does a very good job at making the icon
I'm not sure what just happened here. Let's go back. Come on.
There are so many different.
We were about here, I think.
A4 pad, my iPhone, my iPad. I'm terrible. If you saw the way that I structure and deal with notes, you'd run for the hills. But I am what I'd call a short-term note taker, so I don't really write notes that I refer back to, for months and months. It tends to be stuff that I need to know maybe for today, tomorrow, or from last week. I discovered that I was using a tool called Evernote, which was costing me money. It was getting bigger and bigger, more and more bloated. And I just wasn't using all of its features. And without thinking, I had started using Apple Notes more mainly on the iPhone, but also on the Mac. And I really haven't looked back. I've cancelled my Evernote subscription, and I now just use Apple Notes. So very quickly, the reason I stopped using Evernote, firstly, it's a brilliant app. It's an absolute powerhouse of a note-taking app. But for me, that's part of the issue. And every release that seemed to come out for Evernote seemed to get more and more bloated, more complicated, and it went well beyond my needs for note-taking. And in fact, the only reason I paid for it, there were two reasons I paid for it. One of them was for multi-device syncing, so that I could get my notes on as many different devices as I liked. And the other one is that with the free version of Evernote, you can't access your notes offline, which, okay, fair enough, but I had to pay to get that ability. But the rest of the features you get, includes things like annotating PDFs, searching for text inside Office documents, custom templates. Doesn't excite me. For you, that might be useful. I love giving money to third-party developers, but sometimes Apple does have the better solution purely because they're so simple. And that's exactly the case with Apple Notes. So let's get into the 5 reasons why I think it is superb. So if you look at the design of Apple Notes, it's about as simple as it comes. You have on the left-hand side a pane where you can set up all your folders and stuff like that. And on the right-hand side, the note. It's as simple as that. It doesn't get any more complicated. Lots of white space, lots of very clear affordance, and basically that means you know what to click on straight away. And that's another great thing with Notes. I think Apple does a very good job at making the icons for each control pretty self-explanatory. I used to spend ages in Evernote trying to work out how to do certain things because it was never obvious what button did what. And that was it really. The more capable Evernote became, the harder the UI got from my perspective. So it is easy to poke fun at Apple's apps for being a bit too dumbed down, but sometimes that absolutely works. And Notes is an example of an uncluttered, cleverly designed app that is just as simple as it needs to be. Accessing my notes on various devices is really important. So for example, in this studio, I have two Macs. I have an iMac here and I have Mac Mini behind me, but I also have a MacBook Air. Add to that my iPhone, a couple of iPads, and Apple Notes just syncs as you would expect via iCloud, and I've never ever had a problem with the syncing. That's one issue with some third-party apps that use iCloud sync or their own sync or a Dropbox sync. Occasionally appears to be issues with sync conflicts, and I've lost stuff on third-party apps that use iCloud. Whereas with Notes on iCloud, it's never gone wrong, touch wood. Never ever tripped me up, never surprised me, never warned me about a conflicted sync. It just works. And like I say, you can access it on any device. You can even access it on non-Apple devices via iCloud.com. On the iPad, for example, if you do want to use the Apple Pencil, I don't use the Apple Pencil for taking notes, which I'll come on to in a moment, but if you do that, then you just very quickly tap the pencil on the screen when it's locked and it will bring up a new note. Really, really simple. You can also pin notes, which is really useful. So there's a number of notes that I refer to quite regularly. I just pin them, and in Apple Notes, you get a list of those pinned notes right at the top. And I use that for like templates. So templates for the video description for these videos, for example. And then things I need to refer to, like perhaps brand hex colors, certain links that I don't want to keep as bookmarks, but I want to keep somewhere else. Apple Notes just lets me dive into that stuff immediately. It's really convenient. The third thing I love about Apple Notes is that it's got just the right feature set for me. And I appreciate, like I said at the start of this video, that this isn't the case for everyone. You might be a master note taker, much more capable than me with this, who loves to categorize them properly and add lots of different type of content to them. You can do that with Apple Notes, but they've kind of pared it down and they've only very iteratively developed it over the years. Formatting is a really good example. So you can format notes in Apple Notes to a degree, but not too much from my perspective. So you can obviously set them to bold, italics, etc. And it has this quite nice feature where as soon as you start a new note and start typing, it will treat that first line as a heading. It seems to deal with copy and paste fairly well. There are occasionally issues if I copy from something like Word into Notes, but generally speaking, if you choose the paste as text option, you'll generally get clean text in Notes. If I want, I can add tables, I can add checklists, I can lob images into Notes if I want to. You can export notes as PDFs. You can dictate to, hey, I don't do that. I'm not a dictation person, but I know a lot of people like doing that. So that's a nice feature if that floats your boat. But as mentioned earlier, I don't use the Apple Pencil for taking notes on Apple Notes. The only area where I think at the moment Notes falls down a little bit, which is I just don't like the way it treats handwritten notes. I don't know what it is about it. It feels to me like the integration with the Apple Pencil in Apple Notes is more about drawing. It's more about sketching things out. I'm not an illustrator. I don't sketch things at all, really. I just write. I find that GoodNotes is a better app for that. That said, when iPadOS 15 is launched later this year, that will have the Quick Notes feature that I mentioned earlier, where you can flick up a quick note from anywhere in the operating system and start writing. That might help. So when that's available, I'll give that a go. My notes are fairly personal. Not all of them, but majority of them. You know, they're perhaps stuff about my business, there might be personal thoughts and things. I don't want the whole world potentially having access to them. Now, it's easy to forget that Apple Notes actually has two layers of security. The first one is the security of the device you're using Apple Notes on. So for example, on the phone, you've got Face ID or Touch ID. Basically, you're not ever going to get into my notes, for starters, without either my face or my finger. Same goes for Macs with Touch ID as well. And obviously if you use a passcode, then again, you have to get past that first layer of security to get into your notes. And the second layer of security is the ability to lock and password protect notes. Very easy to do, very secure, and you'll find that it will lock that note whenever you come out of the Notes app and go back into it. So firstly, you've got to get into my phone or my Mac. And secondly, for the notes that I really want to protect, you've got to know the password for them. So it feels very, very secure. I think we also have to bear in mind Apple's stance on privacy. And this was a huge, huge thing at WWDC. They had a whole section devoted to it, and that should offer pretty good peace of mind for anyone that uses Apple Notes. Apple doesn't have access to your notes. It's only you that has access to them. They're not a company that sells your data for advertising purposes. And as I say, they just talk about privacy all the time. To them, they call it a fundamental human right. So I'd much rather put my notes into their platform, to be honest, than anywhere else. And yes, you could store them locally as text files on your computer, but for me, that's just an added bit of stress because I then worry that I've got to back them up and I could lose them. And that brings me on to my fifth and final point about Apple Notes. Apple Notes doesn't scare me. And what I mean by that, if I compare it to another tool that I use. I use a tool called Notion to plan this channel, plan all my content, and basically run this part of my business. It's so important. I'd forget to do everything if I didn't have Notion. But the problem is that I'm putting all of my planning and the data around that into a third-party app that resides on the internet. Now, what if Notion disappears tomorrow? I hope they don't. I really genuinely hope they don't. But if they do, what happens to my data? That's something that's always going through my head and really bothers me, and it's something I'm trying to work out a solution for. Now, Apple, on the other hand, okay, they could potentially disappear overnight, but it's quite unlikely. And even if they did vanish, you do still have a copy of Apple Notes on your local device. So you've got this kind of dual benefit where you've got a company who is absolutely obsessed with data privacy. And that's great because if your Notes data is on their iCloud servers, you know it's pretty much very, very safe indeed. But you've also got this app that has been built locally as well, so it does hold local copies of the notes. And if I think about it, I mean, I gave Notion as an example there of an app that does scare me in terms of it could disappear overnight. There are lots of others as well. I use things like Trello, Fantastical, Spark Email, lots of other apps by smaller developers who, again, I genuinely hope they don't disappear overnight, but they could. I think really Apple Notes is one of the very few examples of an app that I just don't worry about at all. I feel very, very safe and secure about my notes. Notes isn't a topic that you can get too excited about, but when you think about how important notes are to us each and every day and how they help us develop our careers, remember things, plan stuff, it's really important that you pick the right app to help you do all that. But what do you use? Are you an Evernote user? Do you think I'm being unfair on Evernote? Have you, like me, rediscovered or discovered Apple Notes as being, I think, the best note-taking app out there at the moment? Get involved in the comments. If you're thirsty for more Apple/Mac related content, keep watching for a video I did recently where I talk about this 24-inch M1 iMac that's in front of me. I go into detail about the screen size, which for me, I thought was going to be too small. Turns out that wasn't the case, so keep watching for a link to that video. But in the meantime, thank you as always for watching, and I'll catch you next time.
That was it.
Well, I know what his philosophy is. Why say in 5 words what you can say in 25?
He sure talks fast.
Yeah.
He loses
He would-
people.
Yeah, he loses me, yeah.
Well,
I
we won't
love
put
notes.
You get
I
the
love
gist.
notes. I use notes all the time.
Yeah, but
I'm having book club tonight, and I read 2 books in between, and I write down the notes in my notes so that I can have some recollection of what I just read, what I read 2
Yeah.
weeks ago. I love it.
I like,
It's so interesting that he described just about the exact metamorphosis I went through. I used to use Evernote. Alice probably remembers that from the senior center days.
Yeah.
And then I moved to, when they changed their policies, I found Microsoft OneNote, which I thought was pretty good. And then I moved to another program that I thought was really good, and I spent, I think, $29 for, called FS Notes. That's a nice program, but Notes beats them all because, as he says, they're not going to go away tomorrow. You've got a copy on your computer, and even if you lost your internet, you still got your stuff on your computer or your phone or your iPad intact, and that's a very valuable thing, I think.
well, I like Evernote. I've used it forever. And
Yeah.
I use notes also, but Evernote, I mean, you could have thousands of notes. In Apple Notes, I feel like a few hundred maybe would be manageable. I don't know, but Evernote did get more bloated, as he said, and it made me so mad, all the features they have that I don't want. And so far they're letting me use the old one. They're I forget what they call it, but their original format. But I know that'll go away sometime. And
Are you paying? Are you a paid subscriber,
yes,
Janet?
yes, I pay for it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
but if they change changing the size of the font on the left on the sidebar, so it's too big to have enough visible in your list of frequently used notebooks. stupid stuff like that that just make me mad.
I think there's a way to adjust that under preferences.
Oh, if you change the size of font, you change it for the notes and for everything. If you want a small
Yes,
font,
yeah, that's true. It's
Yeah.
global. Yeah, yeah. Well,
I like notes better. I'm not that much of a note taker like him. So I have Evernote, but I don't use the paid version anymore because I just didn't use it often enough. So I like notes, and otherwise I use Microsoft Word on my Mac. So
I love notes. Sometimes I'll forget what a product is that I need at the grocery store, and I just take a picture of it. So I have it in my notes. I love notes.
yeah, it's very handy, very, very handy.
I haven't
you
used
can
it
do
to
all
take
that in Evernote.
picture notes. That's a great idea.
Places that right in the note that you're taking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll that's helpful. Thank you.
One more victory for DVMUG.
Oh, boy.
Well, that's true. You know, you guys are a fount of knowledge and you don't know it, but you all have something to contribute and to share to help each other make discoveries. I mean, John or Anna and I could sit up here and just blah, 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 blah. But when you use this stuff and you say, aha, I made a discovery, then people are going to say, well, there's the voice of experience, you know, and that's worthwhile. Let's move back, go back here.
I'll be impressed when you can write something in notes and it's automatically delivered to your house.
Oh, yeah, I suppose. Now, what did I do with this thing? Well, let's see if I can find it. Share my screen and go back to Keynote. There we go. And go down one. And this is an interesting little discussion on iPhone 12 or wait for the iPhone 13. So let's take a look. And if you think saying something in 25 words or less is better than 5 words or less, watch this guy.
The iPhone 12, Mini, Pro, Max, all of them, all new, retro chic design, OLED, just across the line, Dolby Vision, LiDAR, MagSafe, and of course, 5G, starting at $729 for the Mini. I've been reviewing them all since they first came out, and I'm here to tell you whether you should get one now or wait for the iPhone 12s or iPhone 13 or whatever Apple calls the next iPhone this fall. And I'll be doing this for every product Apple has coming out this year. So hit that subscribe button and bell so you'll know how to best save and spend your hard-earned cash in 2021. The iPhone 12 kept the front and back look of the iPhone 11, but brought back the flattened sides of the iPhone 4 and 5. The result is something that looks just way cooler, but isn't really as comfortable to hold, with black, white, red, green, and blue on the standard, and silver, graphite, gold, and blue on the Pro. And yes, there's still a notch right up on top, which I no longer even really notice, but some people still treat like a splinter in their eye. The iPhone 13 will keep the same design, though there's almost certainly going to be some variation in the colors. It'll also reportedly keep the notch, though not quite as wide. So if you like the iPhone 12 design, especially the current colors, just go ahead and grab one now. But if you're hoping to get yellow or orange back or some other color entirely, and especially if you want just a tiny bit less notch right up on top, wait and see what the iPhone 13 has to offer. The iPhone 12 displays are just better than they've ever been. OLED and HDR on all of them, so you get high contrast, deep blacks, and bright whites on all of them. They look absolutely terrific. And now with Ceramic Shield, well, they still scratch, but they're much less likely to crack. They're also still locked to 60 frames per second. No high refresh rate, no adaptive refresh rate. That's only rumored to be coming with ProMotion on the next generation iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max later this fall. But if you don't care about that, or don't even know what that is, then get the iPhone 12 now and enjoy. If you do though, if you're just all about the 120 hertz, you're just all about to wait for the iPhone 13 Pro. The iPhone 12 got better cameras just across the board, with deep fusion and night mode on all the cameras. Likewise, Dolby Vision for HDR video. The iPhone 12 Pro got ProRAW and LiDAR for low light autofocus and night mode portraits. And the iPhone 12 Pro Max got an even bigger sensor, longer telephoto, and in-body image stabilization. Now, I prefer the smaller iPhone Pro and kinda all shades adore the Mini. But for me, the cameras on the iPhone 12 Pro Max made it just the must-have. So if you're cool using the Max or just cool with the regular cameras, you'll be cool with the iPhone 12. But if you aren't willing to go Max, but still want maximum cameras, rumor has it the iPhone 13 may just have LiDAR and the better sensors across the line as well. The iPhone 12 series are the first iPhones with 5G, integrating Qualcomm's X55 modem, which supports both frequency range 1 for low and mid band and frequency range 2 for high band, also known as millimeter wave. Only 5G itself isn't well supported, at least not yet. I have FR1 a few blocks around where I live, and I get about double LTE speeds. But many people don't have any 5G, or worse, 5G so bad they're racing back to LTE. That the modem is also not very efficient yet means it drags down the iPhone battery life, even with Apple's smart data feature trying its best to balance things out. But the iPhone 13 should integrate Qualcomm's X60 modem, which is smaller and more efficient, allowing for more battery, but also placing less pressure on that battery. All the fingers crossed. So if 5G isn't in your area or just isn't high on your list or on your list at all, you can get an iPhone 12 now and be perfectly happy. But if you're willing to wait on 5G until it's in more areas and until it's more efficient, then there'll be more 5G in the future and better 5G radios to go with it. The iPhone 12 has Face ID, Apple's facial geometry identity scanner, same as the iPhone 11. Like almost exactly the same, despite supporting unlock on every orientation on the iPad since 2018, it's still portrait only on the iPhone. It does keep getting faster and smarter, but in the age of masks when you're out and about, it's just nowhere nearly as convenient as it used to be. The iPhone 13 is reportedly going to be getting a new version of Touch ID, Apple's fingerprint identity scanner. Not in the power button like the new iPad Air, but under the display, and not instead of Face ID, but in addition to it, as in just the best of both biometric worlds. So if Face ID is still totally fine for you, it's going to be totally fine to pick up the iPhone 12 right now. But if you need your Touch ID back, you're going to need to wait for the iPhone 13 at the earliest. The iPhone 12 still has a Lightning port, the same one Apple introduced back in 2012, almost 3 years before USB-C became a reality. And despite literally all the nerds asking them to switch to USB-C, like Apple has done for the Mac and are continuing to do for the iPad, Apple is just steadfastly, stubbornly even, stuck to Lightning on the iPhone. But there are reports that maybe at least one model of the iPhone 13 will finally delete the Lightning port. Not for USB-C, because that would be just too well received, but to delete it just to watch it die, like the headphone jack. And instead to go with the recently introduced iPhone version of MagSafe or some hybrid of MagSafe and the iPad Smart Connector instead. So since the iPhone 12 currently has both Lightning and MagSafe, there's no reason to wait for any of that. But if you're at all nervous about Apple taking away your hardline, you might not even want to wait on the iPhone 13 anyway. For more, much more on the iPhone, click on the playlist above. I'm breaking down every feature now and expected so that you can help choose which one is right for you. Just click on the playlist and I'll see you in the next video.
Okay, so there you have it. iPhone 12 now or 13 later. Has anybody got an iPhone 12 besides John Nelson? I know he's probably got one.
Yes, I have one.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, so you're probably not in the market for a new phone quite yet.
No.
No.
But, I'm running the 10R and I'm quite happy with it. It does everything I need. So I'm not sure I'm going to expend the money for even a 13. I may wait for the 14 to come out if I'm still around. So we'll have to see. But I think it's all pretty exciting. But 5G is just not something that's going to happen tomorrow. very expensive. The range is quite short, so you're going to see huge fights in every city over whether or not they will allow, or where the neighbors will be complaining about it. The cities have no choice, but the neighbors will be complaining. We don't want that in our backyard because there's going to have to be one on about every other telephone pole in a neighborhood for it to work. The
Why do I
transmitter,
have
that
it?
is. Pardon me?
I have it. It says 5G on it.
It's not
Yeah,
really.
but it's not really 5G.
Not
It's
really.
just
You're probably
fake?
with AT&T. You're with AT&T
Yes.
or Verizon. Yeah, AT&T is calling it 5G, but
Yeah.
it's fake.
Does
Exactly.
it say
Maybe it's the O-band
5G? Does
5G.
it say 5GE?
It says AT&T 5. Oh, I can't read it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't care.
Might be low-band
I've
5G.
seen it say on Ann's phone, it says 5GE. It's not 5G, it's fake.
Okay,
It's
it works.
AT&T's
Yeah,
calling it that, but
real
it's not.
5G.
Yeah, if you do a speed test, you'll see you're not getting the lightning speed that the 5G will bring you.
Was the
There's
lower
also
band,
two different flavors of 5G.
right.
There's regular 5G and there's what they call millimeter wave 5G,
Yep.
which is the fast one, and the one with
Yep.
very short range. So there's a lot of places where you can go and you're actually getting 5G. Now, if it says 5GE, you're not. But it just depends on where you are. I know when I got my 12 Pro Max, I had always had signal problems at work, and they had the regular 5G enabled, and I can tell a big difference in the quality of, the bandwidth, and I can actually watch videos on my phone in my office, and I was never able to do that before.
And if your supervisor finds out, you'll probably never be able to do it again. No,
Certainly,
I'm sure,
certainly,
I'm sure you're within parameters there, Don.
Always.
I highly doubt that they have 5G in Rossmore.
Yeah.
No, there's no 5G in Rossmore.
No.
Well, that's-
when they start hanging those transmitters up, you watch. It's going to be almost as bad as when they tried to take Turner Classic Movies away from Rossmore.
I'll tell
That's
you,
what
Rossmore.
Jennifer's in
everything.
Rossmore. Yeah.
we hate everything, and then we wish we had it bigger.
Yeah. Well, Rossmore got Turner Classic Movies back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but nobody else gets it unless you want to pay extra, but Rossmore succeeded. Anyway, let's move on. Share. And go to the next one. This is our friend Gary coming up with how to scroll on a Mac and tips and tricks.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Today, let's talk about scrolling on your Mac. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you can read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So something that often trips up new Mac users is how to scroll on a Mac. After all, if you look at a typical window, like the Safari window here showing a long web page, you won't see any scrolling bar on the right side. Many years ago you would have seen that on the Mac, but today by default there's no scrolling bar there. So how do you scroll down when you have a window where the content is longer than the size of the window? Well, the primary way to do that depends on whether you're using a trackpad or a mouse. With a trackpad, you simply use 2 fingers on the trackpad and you scroll down or up using those 2 fingers. Just put them in the middle of the trackpad and swipe up slowly and you'll be able to scroll down on the page. Swipe down and you'll scroll up. This is called natural scrolling. The content is actually moving in the same direction as your fingers. So when I scroll up with 2 fingers, the content moves up. And when I scroll down with 2 fingers, the content moves down. Now if you're using an Apple mouse, then it works a little differently because you only use 1 finger. by doing the same gesture, just one finger in the middle, you can scroll up or down. And this is also by default using natural scroll direction. So as I move my finger up, the content moves up, and as I move it down, the content moves down. Now note that in both those cases, the pointer has to be in the window. If it's outside the window, it won't work. So here I can scroll up and down because the pointer is in the window. But if I move the pointer outside the window, then up or down isn't going to do anything, as it doesn't know I'm trying to scroll this particular window, even though this is the frontmost window and it's what would receive keyboard clicks. If the pointer isn't over it, it won't scroll. Now the reason for this is you can scroll windows that are not the frontmost window. So for instance, here I've got another window open. If I put my pointer in it and I can scroll this up and down, if I move my pointer over here, I don't have to make this window active to scroll in this window. So it's the window that the pointer is over, not the window that's the frontmost active window. Now this works the same no matter what app you're using. So for instance, here I am in the Finder and I have a long list of files, and I can scroll up and down using 2 fingers on the trackpad or 1 finger on an Apple mouse. And in Pages, it's the same thing. I can scroll up and down with 2 fingers on the trackpad or 1 finger on an Apple mouse. So what if you don't have an Apple mouse? Well, if you have a very basic mouse that has no scroll wheel or any ability to scroll at all, then you won't be able to use that mouse to scroll. However, if your mouse has a scroll wheel, the scroll wheel should work to scroll the window up and down. But you may have to check the settings for that particular device to see if there are any special customized settings for scrolling. So what about the scroll bar? Notice that while there's nothing on the right side of the window when I'm not scrolling, when I start to scroll, I actually see a very narrow scroll bar. It's basically invisible except for the little indicator that shows you the area of the document that you're looking at. So the entire height of the window represents the height of the content, and that little dark area represents the portion of the content that you're looking at. So you can see as I scroll down and I get towards the middle, I can see that the indicator shows me this is the portion of the middle that I'm looking at right there. If I move my cursor over to it, notice that the invisible scroll bar becomes visible. It's now an area with the border around it. And I can actually grab this indicator here and drag it around. So I could very quickly go to an area of the document that I want. If I move my cursor away and wait long enough, it will disappear. So the scroll bar goes away. Also, when I'm dealing with the scroll bar over here like this, I can click below it or above it, and usually that will jump by 1 page. This is how scroll bars have always worked. So the only real difference here is that the scroll bar is invisible when you're not using it and then appears when you start to scroll. Now back in System Preferences, you have 3 settings for when the scroll bar shows. Automatically based on mouse or trackpad means that it will show when scrolling if you're using an Apple mouse or trackpad. So in that case, if you're using an Apple mouse and trackpad, it won't normally show. It'll only show when scrolling. But if you're using a non-Apple mouse or trackpad, it will show all the time. You can change it to always just show when scrolling regardless of whether you have an Apple mouse or trackpad. Or you can set it to always show even when you have an Apple mouse or trackpad. So notice here it's always there now. So even when I'm not using it, it's there, and I can go over to the right side and click above and below, and I can drag it, and when I stop scrolling it's still there. Some people like that, always having the scroll bar there. It's how all computers used to work. But other people don't like it because it takes up an extra bit of space. Now you have one other setting here. That's when you click in the scroll bar above or below the indicator. And that could have a jump to the next page, which is default, or jump to that spot. So if I change it to jump to that spot and now I start scrolling to bring up the scroll bar and I move my cursor over here and I click, it jumps to that spot. So I can quickly jump to the end, quickly jump to the beginning. Now one tip here is you could have the Option key change this behavior on a temporary basis. So right now I've got it set so if I click in a spot in the scroll bar, it will jump to that spot. But if I hold the Option key down, it instead will behave with the opposite setting where it's just doing page up and page down. And if I were to go and change that then so that it jumps to the next page, then Option clicking would jump to that spot. Now there's some other settings in System Preferences you should check out, but you won't find those in general. You'll find them under trackpad or mouse depending upon which one you're using. So under trackpad, if you go to scroll and zoom, then there's scroll direction natural. So that's what I was talking about before. If you turn this off, then it will scroll in the opposite way. This is the way Macs used to work years ago. I strongly recommend leaving this on and getting used to how Macs have worked for a while now. It does take a few hours, maybe a day to get used to, but it does, I feel, work better this way. So if you're tempted to turn this off, I really recommend instead just trying it, and you'll soon find it really does become natural. Now if you're using a mouse, you have the same setting. It's under point and click, and it's the same thing right here. So this is for one finger on the mouse, whether it scrolls in the natural direction or the opposite direction. Well, how about scrolling with the keyboard? There are many keyboard shortcuts to control scrolling, but which ones work depend on whether this is content that you're editing or content that you're simply viewing. Most of the time in a web browser you're simply viewing content. So you can use the very simple shortcut of hitting the spacebar to scroll forward one page. And then Shift spacebar scrolls backwards by one page. You can also use the arrow keys to scroll down. Down arrow will scroll down by approximately one line in standard content, although whether it is actually one line depends on the size of the text in the content you're viewing. And up arrow will scroll up by one. If you want to scroll all the way to the bottom, Command down arrow will do that, and Command up arrow will go to the top. Now if you have an extended keyboard with page up and page down, you can use page up and page down to scroll by page. But if you don't have that, you can use the FN key and then use the down arrow key with the FN key held down to do page down, and FN up is page up. FN right arrow is to the bottom, FN left arrow is to the top. These are the end and home keys on an extended keyboard. Also you have some older keyboard shortcuts. The control key, not command but control, and N will scroll down by about one line, and control P up by one line. But this is different if you're in a document, something where you can actually edit text. Then using the arrow keys like down arrow would actually move the text cursor down. It won't scroll. Also using the spacebar obviously would insert a space. So you can't use those. If you have an extended keyboard you can use page down and page up. So that means on a regular keyboard you can use the FN key and the down arrow and up arrow to go up and down by a page, or FN right arrow to go to the end and left arrow to go to the beginning or home. Also note that when you're editing a document, if you try to move the text cursor past the bottom, it should naturally scroll up. And the same thing if you try to move the text cursor past the top, it should naturally scroll up. So often you don't even have to worry about the keyboard shortcuts for scrolling because things will scroll naturally to always show you what it is you're working on. And this is also true when you're looking at files in the Finder here. If I were to use the arrow keys here, it actually selects a file. So it kind of works like you're working in Pages in a document there. So instead you can use the page up, page down, or the FN and down key to move by a page, or FN and right to move to the bottom, and then FN and left to move back to the top. So some extra notes here. Remember, scrolling bars aren't just for vertical scrolling. Let's zoom in on this document some more. And now we can see we not only have vertical scrolling when I try to go up and down, but horizontal scrolling left and right. And you can see the scroll bar there at the bottom of this document. Same thing is true here in the Finder. Of course I have vertical scrolling, but I also have horizontal scrolling. And you could do the same thing with horizontal scrolling. As soon as you bring it up you can move the cursor down there and you could drag it back and forth or click after it or before to quickly move through the content in a horizontal mode rather than a vertical mode. If you go into System Preferences and General and you turn scroll bars always on, then you'll always see not only the vertical scroll bar but the horizontal one in places where there is a horizontal scroll bar, like in this case here. And note that if you're in column view in the Finder, then you're going to get scroll bars between each column. So this is for this column here and this one is for this column here. A lot of people like having scroll bars turned on all the time just for this reason. It's nice to have this divider between columns. Not only can you always see the scroll bar and quickly figure out how much content there is in each column, but you also have this nice little area to grab to move the line. You could do that without having the scroll bars visible, but this is a bigger area and a little easier to use. So when you have horizontal scroll bars, you still use two fingers on the trackpad to scroll. You just move them left and right instead of up and down. And you could scroll that way. And you can go diagonally to scroll in both directions. And you can do the same thing with one finger on a Apple mouse. You can move the one finger left and right to scroll horizontally, then vertically is up and down, and you can do diagonals as well. Now there are really no keyboard commands for using horizontal scrolling, so you really need to use your mouse and trackpad for that. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.
Okay, so probably more than you ever wanted to know about that, but I find that sometimes these basics are very useful. I know I've said that before, but they come in handy. Come on.
There was an assassin, spy, an avenger.
Here we go. Go down one. Several times people have had problems recently that they've posted on the bulletin board, and it's been suggested that they go into safe mode. And I noticed a couple of times people have said, what's safe mode? So let's find out.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Today, let's talk about scrolling on your Mac.
No, sorry.
MacMost is brought to you thanks.
There we go.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Today, let me show you how to use safe mode on your Mac. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you can read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So safe mode is a different way to boot up your Mac. It's a tool that you could use if your Mac is having trouble to both diagnose what the problem may be and also possibly fix it. So when should you use safe mode? Well, only if you're having trouble. I know a lot of people are going to be tempted to just try safe mode to see whether or not your Mac gets a little faster or more efficient or something like that. But it's really only there if you're actually having trouble. Like for instance, your Mac won't boot at all, or you're getting constant errors and app crashes, or perhaps your Mac is really slow and it freezes up for long periods of time, or other like really severe problems. Things that you weren't having a short while ago and now suddenly your Mac isn't working right. Safe mode is one thing you can use to try to fix this. Now it may not solve the problem. The issue may not be something that safe mode addresses, but it's worth a try. So what does safe mode do? Well, it does a few things. First, while booting up in safe mode, it's going to run some system checks. And it's going to do something very similar to disk first aid. That's when you boot into recovery mode, run disk utility, and run first aid to diagnose and fix problems on the drive. It's going to do something similar to that. So if there's a disk issue, then booting into safe mode may not only find the problem, but may fix it. It's also going to boot without using system extensions, particularly ones installed by third-party apps. So if you have an app installed, something that's adding something to the system and that's causing a problem, then booting into safe mode won't be using that extension. And then you could see whether or not the problem still exists when you're in safe mode. It's also going to not install anything but the basic system fonts. So if there's a font causing the issue, then booting into safe mode could reveal that. It's also going to clear out certain caches. Caches are bits of data stored on your Mac to help speed things up. Things like the kernel cache, which is the core of your Mac operating system, and also the font cache are cleared out when you boot into safe mode. So if the problem was caused by those, booting into safe mode would actually fix the problem. So let's talk about how to boot into safe mode. There are two different methods depending upon which Mac you've got. If you have an older Intel Mac, then it's pretty simple. All you need to do is shut down your Mac and wait for 10 seconds. And then when you boot up your Mac again, while you're pressing the power button, also hold down the Shift key. And keep the Shift key held down until you see the login screen. Then you're in safe mode. Now if you have a new Mac, one that's using the Apple Silicon chips like the M1 chip, then you do it differently. You still shut down and wait 10 seconds. But now you boot up by holding the power button and you continue to hold the power button. You don't need to use the Shift key at this point. Then it'll show you a message telling you to continue to hold down the power button for more options. And then you'll see a message saying it's booting with more options. At that point you can remove your finger from the power button. Let it finish booting. Now to get to safe mode, first select the startup disk. You probably just have the one internal drive as your startup disk. And then hold the shift key down. And the little bit of text underneath it will change to indicate that you can boot into safe mode. Click that. Now just wait for your Mac to finish booting. Now it could take a while because it's going to run all those disk checks, clear those caches, do a bunch of things. So be prepared to wait. Go grab a cup of coffee or go to lunch and let it finish booting into safe mode. When it's done, you'll see on the login screen a little red indicator at the top right saying you're in safe mode. And then once you log in, you're logged in now in safe mode. Okay, so that's how to do it. But how do you actually use safe mode to fix problems on your Mac? Well, first is when you have an issue, you should try some things before safe mode. Try a regular reboot to see if that fixes the problem. And then if you're using a lot of apps at the same time, after your regular reboot, don't launch any new apps at all. Just launch maybe the one app you need to use and see if you're having trouble there. And then try to notice when trouble starts and which app it was that you added to the mix. In that case, you know the trouble's that app. It's got nothing to do with safe mode and you need to contact support for that particular app. Now if you do try safe mode to try to fix things, then after you've booted into safe mode, what you want to do is test to see if the problem is still there. You don't want to use your Mac for too much. Remember, you're now without some system extensions. You're now without some fonts. So you don't want to actually do any serious work. But test things out. If everything seems to be working fine now, then maybe safe mode fixed the issue. In that case, reboot and go back into normal mode so you can get back to work. If at that point everything seems fixed, then you know that one of the things that safe mode did actually fixed the problem. However, if you know the problem returns after booting normally, then you know that it's probably some sort of system extension or a bad font or something that's causing the issue. After all, it works fine in safe mode, but not in regular boot mode. So then you need to go and do other things besides safe mode to fix the issue. Make sure all the old software you have is up to date. It could be an old version of an app you're using has a bug in it that's fixed by a newer version. See if there's some software you have that you no longer need and disable or uninstall it. If you have anything that runs in the background, anything like a cleaner app or anti-malware or something like that that's always running and doing something behind the scenes, try disabling that, not using it for a little while, and see if that was causing the issue. Also consider any hardware accessories you have attached. Anything you have attached by USB or Thunderbolt could also be contributing to the issue. Try disconnecting them. See if the problem is still around after you reboot with those detached. And if the problem only exists when you attach those items, you know that it's that item that's causing the issue. Another thing that you could do is to create a new user account on your Mac. You can create as many user accounts as you want. So create a brand new user account and see if the same problem happens in that user account. You don't need to use that user account for anything other than just testing. But if the problem isn't happening when you log into that user account, but it is happening when you log into your regular user account, you know something that is being launched in that regular user account is causing the issue. You can go into System Preferences, Users, and Groups and check login items to see what's there. Although not everything appears there. A lot of software that you install won't be listed here but still launches something whenever you log in as that user. So again, go through the software you have installed to see what you can disable or uninstall temporarily and check to see if that fixes the problem. Now if all that fails, then safe mode didn't work and any of these other techniques didn't work, then you probably want to make an appointment at the Genius Bar or with a Mac expert to have them take a first-hand look at your Mac. Now if you want more information about safe mode, Apple has this page that you can check out. So go there to read more about it. Hope this helps. Thanks for watching.
Or make an appointment at
If you
the
like
clinic.
this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.
Come on. Or you can make an appointment at the clinic, which is coming up this Saturday, but we're full already. And I've already had a request for one appointment for August. So it looks like we're back in business. And before we get to our next one, I'm wondering, have we decided at the clinic if we're going to be doing lunch and whether people will be invited to join us given the latest information on COVID?
I would think no, we wouldn't be inviting anybody to come who wasn't, you know, outside people that weren't in the clinic that day.
Oh, no, no. Well, I was thinking members, there's one member who always comes. And
I don't know, given the current situation where things are going bad, again, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, check back with us on Saturday. We'll see. I'm probably gonna go to lunch someplace. It may end up just two of us, who knows? So we'll see. Let me bring this back.
One thing about the safe mode is your computer video screen may be very wonky. You don't load the video, third-party video drivers, and it can be artifacts in the video. And it can also fix if you have a video card that's a problem and it doesn't load the video drivers. That may or may not fix your problem, and you can run it. Then you know to uninstall those video drivers. I've seen that too. But sometimes you unload the video drivers and it doesn't work at all because the standard drivers built in don't work. It's a troubleshooting problem for the video card.
Yep. I've had very good results with that on many, many cases where just starting up the safe mode does an innumerable innumerable acts of house cleaning that can straighten out a lot of issues. And finally today, AirDrop. What is it and how does it work? Unfortunately, I had a really good video on this by a gal named Serenity Caldwell, who's a frequent contributor to Leo Laporte and his group, but the audio was just almost inaudible. So I found an alternative, and it's from Apple, and it's well done and concise. Here we go.
With AirDrop, you can instantly share files, photos, and more with nearby Apple devices without using cellular data. We'll take a look at how to set up AirDrop, as well as how to share and receive content. Before you start, make sure you're near the person you're sending to and within Bluetooth and Wi-Fi range. You'll both need Bluetooth and Wi-Fi turned on and personal hotspot turned off. First, let's take a look at how to set up AirDrop. You can do this through Control Center or in your iPhone settings. We'll use Control Center. Once you're there, touch and hold the network settings card. To check who can see your device and send you content, tap AirDrop and select an option. We'll keep ours set to contacts only, which means that you'll need to have the sender saved as a contact in order to receive content. If you don't have them as a contact, you can change your device settings to everyone. Just remember, if you keep your AirDrop settings to everyone, you may receive an invitation to accept content from someone you don't know. You can also turn off receiving completely. Now let's share something with AirDrop. We're going to share a photo. Start by opening the image. Then tap the Share button in the bottom left of the screen. On the top row, you may see your other nearby devices signed in with your Apple ID or Siri suggestions of people you can share with. Now, tap AirDrop. Then, tap the device or contact you want to share with. If you want to send something to one of your own devices, it will download automatically. If you receive something from someone else on AirDrop, you'll receive an alert with a preview of the content being shared and options to accept or decline. If you tap Accept, the content will open in the app it was sent from. So a photo will appear in the Photos app, while a website URL opens in Safari. If a file can be opened in multiple apps, like a PDF, you can choose which app to open it in. And that's how to share files, photos, and more using AirDrop. For more helpful iOS tips, subscribe to the Apple support channel or click another video to keep watching.
And that's AirDrop.
Rick,
when
what
it
was
works, it's beautiful.
Rick, he had said, Rick, to turn on Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and turn off something.
Turn off your hotspot.
Oh, okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, it's quite nice. The one thing you have to remember is anybody that you're sharing with needs to be near you and on the same network.
Could I ask, he mentioned subscribe to the Apple support channel. What is that on YouTube?
Yes.
Yes.
Is
They
that a
have
good
pretty
thing?
nice videos, but they're awfully concise.
Yeah, I wish they would do
And,
more. It's kind of disappointing. You'd think they would do more, but they're very short 1-minute videos. They're good, but there should be more of them.
So I have a question about AirDrop. Why would I use AirDrop and not just send a picture by email?
Well, suppose your daughter is visiting you and she has a picture or a dozen pictures of her baby.
Yeah.
And she wants to get them to you quickly. The fastest and easiest way would be by AirDrop. Just drag it on, and if your Mac is set up and your phone and your iPad are all set up, it'll appear on all of them.
And can't you send larger files than normal?
Yes, you can send a much larger bunch of files than you can over the internet through email. Much larger.
Yes.
I sent a photo that was 40 megs.
Okay.
Through an AirDrop, and it was just bingo. It was right on my friend's screen.
Great. Thank you. That's
it's really
Yeah, my
really nice.
granddaughter and I used it where we don't have any Wi-Fi or any kind of anything, and we just had my iPad mini and her cell phone, and I transferred a PDF file full of recipes immediately into her cell phone. It was wonderful.
Yeah, when I was traveling too with a group of people in Africa, and we were sharing photos and videos, and they just instantly transferred. It was just amazing that way. It was a great way of sharing photos and videos.
Then you don't need Wi. I thought he said you needed Wi-Fi, but that's
At least
not-
we
turn
had
it on.
Yeah.
You have to have it on, but you don't need it.
Yeah. No,
We didn't have
you don't-
anything.
You don't need a Wi-Fi router. You just need to have Wi-Fi enabled on both devices.
But you have to
Because
be in
the
close-
devices themselves are transmitters and receivers. The router is what just broadcasts it throughout your whole house.
But you have to be in close proximity, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to be in Bluetooth proximity, so basically in the same room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great for sharing contacts.
Yeah.
What if why do you need Wi-Fi if you're just using Bluetooth? I have trouble.
Well, as I explained, the telephone and the Mac are Wi-Fi transmitters and receivers themselves. The router just makes it possible for you to access outside internet, but you're still using Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to share these things locally. So you still need to have the Wi-Fi on.
But
If you have it off, it won't work.
Does our Wi-Fi connection from both of us have to be to the same Wi-Fi tower?
No,
No,
we didn't
that's
have any
why-
Wi-Fi at all. Where we are, where we were in the Sierras, there's nothing.
You don't have
And
to
I
have Wi-Fi
even,
to
my
use AirDrop.
Mini even had airplane mode on, and it still works. Just run one next to the other and bingo.
The only reason you need Wi-Fi is if you have multiple devices, so it puts it on multiple devices, which are connected to the same network. Otherwise, it's just device to device.
Well, that's my question. I had a case where I couldn't get it to work, but I was on Verizon and she was on AT&T, and I couldn't get it to work.
It's just
That's
transmitter and receiver. It's just the sender is a transmitter, the receiver is a receiver.
One at a time, guys.
You have to turn the setting for AirDrop on your phone. It's by default, it's off.
Yeah, I understand that, we both have AirDrop on, but we're not connected to the same Wi-Fi tower. It should work.
There's no Wi-Fi tower. There is no such thing as a Wi-Fi tower. You're thinking cellular tower, but that cellular has nothing to do with this. What you need to be connected to is each other's phone using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. So there is no network you're going to connect to. Just turn it on and blindly have faith that it's going to work. So have AirDrop on, Wi-Fi on, Bluetooth on, and hotspot off, and it'll work beautifully.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank
It
you.
uses Bluetooth.
Yeah.
What it does is you create a peer-to-peer network. It's your own little mini network between the two devices.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
what
you.
he said. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, criticisms, jokes?
Opinions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while we got
Opinions are
everybody
welcome.
here, let's remind everybody that next week, we will not be doing a Tuesday meeting in the afternoon. Instead, we will be a Zoom meeting on Thursday evening at 6:30 Pacific time. Same meeting, but we're going to try an evening meeting for the people who can't come in the afternoon.
Right.
See how it
And
works.
for you too, if you just want to eat dinner a little early, get the dishes done, and sit down with a cup of coffee afterwards and join us.
Mr. Nelson, great pictures, man. Not to talk about John. John puts up some nice pictures. You came up with some real close-ups.
Oh, thanks.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Oh, all bunch of good-looking cars.
You aren't on Facebook, so you didn't get to share our pictures of the car show.
Oh, no, I don't do Facebook.
The first
Oh.
car show that me and Don and Ann have been to together for
A few times.
probably almost a year and a half, 2 years.
One thing I like about John's pictures is he gets real close. I mean, you can see things on those cars. That is nice. There's some. Where did they get these cars from? I mean, a Bugatti.
Yeah, they're out there.
And See's Candy.
Yeah, that was, that's one of the things I enjoy about going with Ann and John, because we each have our own shooting styles. And, and I notice there's almost always something that one of us sees that the other two don't. It just kind of works out that way. But I just got a new camera, and this was actually my first show with it.
I have a smaller camera than Don. Don's big camera, he doesn't tend to like stick it in the window of the car. It's too big and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I do.
Yeah, I like to see instrument clusters. I think they're interesting. And on some of the classic cars, the walnut dashboards.
Yeah, people accuse me, and they mention sometimes that I have a steering wheel fetish.
Yeah.
But basically, I take pictures of inside the car. What's inside the car is the dash and the steering wheel, because dashboards are all they're unbelievable dashboards. Some of the old cars, they're all really different.
Yeah.
And the gauges and stuff, and the steering wheels, yeah, but all the interiors. So you can do that pretty easily with a smaller camera. You can stick it in the window and kind of look at the side and frame it and shoot.
That BMW 2002 TII. That was 1967, I believe it is. That's what got me from.
They had a whole class of BMWs at the show. It was featured.
Yeah.
Actually,
where was
that
the
orange
show?
one? That orange one that was my first shot was actually in the parking lot.
Yeah. those cars in particular, the TII fuel injected
Yes.
with the
That's what
round
got-
taillights from like
That's what got me
73.
from Chicago
They've
to
now
Casper,
they've now
Wyoming.
gone, the price has gone
Yeah.
crazy. Don knows somebody where he bought his car who had one, and really nice one. It was at the show a couple years ago, and somebody offered him like a ridiculous amount of money, we thought at the time, and he couldn't refuse it. It was like twice what any other one was, so he sold it. And now that's the normal price now. It's like $75,000.
Yeah.
Oh, it was more than that. It was
$100,000.
$175,000.
Is that what he got for that car?
Yeah, he actually
Well, that-
showed me that he actually pulled up his banking app on his phone and showed me where the guy transferred the money to his account. 175K.
That's still stupid.
What
money.
kind of
That-
car was this?
It was a 72 BMW 2002 TII, and it was restored.
4-cylinder car. The car was only cost like $3,000 or $4,000 when it was new.
Yeah.
It's
You know,
crazy.
money had different meaning at that time. So that was a lot of money, but that car was didn't quit.
It's like 911 air-cooled Porsches are now crazy money, and those are pretty common cars. They made a lot of those cars.
You see,
My neighbor's got 3 of them.
Your
I
neighbor
didn't
has
see any
3
whale
airplane
tails.
Porsches?
He has 3 Carraras in his garage. He has one of those, one sits on the floor, and the other one, he's got this thing, you drive it in and it raises the car, and then you
Yeah.
drive the third one in under it.
Wow.
And he
Man,
breaks them out every Friday night about 8:30 and runs them. And
Wakes
disturbs
everybody up.
Everybody in the neighborhood. Huh?
Look at this.
Yeah.
The car culture.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
and what
if
is
you're on
it,
Facebook, you can see,
2035?
I was American Graffiti. I lived in Modesto in the 50s.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in 2035 in Canada, you're not going to be able to buy an internal combustion car, I think, and won't be too much later. Probably you're in California too.
You know,
At first I was skeptical about these hydrogen cars because I was around when the Hindenburg went. But boy, these hydrogen cars look very, very interesting. It's the only thing, the fuel is made out of water, and the only byproduct of combustion is water, and that's it.
You and I both. I'm waiting for one to. The only thing I'm waiting for is getting more fueling stations, because
there's one in San Ramon.
There is one
in San Ramon.
Berkeley too.
One.
That's about it. San Ramon and Berkeley.
So
I think there is one in Sacramento.
Hydrogen is not a fuel, it's just a transfer mechanism. How do they make the hydrogen? They make it out of water. How do they do that? With electricity.
With electricity.
Right, so it's an electric car where the hydrogen is just the transfer mechanism. It starts as water, it ends as water. And you have to, somewhere you got to make the electricity.
Yeah.
A friend of mine always laughs at Teslas. He says, coal-powered cars.
Yeah.
It's a source of electricity.
Where's all this electricity going to come from? We already have a shortage.
Well,
I know they're closing down the last nuclear plant in California, which was the only hope for unlimited, cheap, pretty safe electricity. They got rid of it.
We should open a chain of coal stations. The cars
it was interesting that
coal stations.
At the show on Sunday, they did have a few electric cars there. They had a Porsche Taycan, which is an all-electric car. They had one of the new Mustangs. And they also had 2 cars that are about to be marketed by Volvo called Polestars. Because Volvo has already said, I think at the end of this decade, no more internal combustion. And so they're getting there.
Well, there's a big battery recall now on Hyundai and Chevrolet Bolt. They say park them
Yeah, the
outside 'cause
Bolt.
they catch fire.
One of my neighbors has a Bolt up the street, and he's parking it on the driveway now with an extension cord out to it
Yeah.
because of that fire danger.
Yeah,
And
you don't wanna-
interestingly enough, he's a fire consultant for fire safety.
Well, he knows
There-
very well what happens if you electric car catches on fire. All they do is pour
Yeah.
water on it for a couple hours. They can't put
Yeah.
it out.
Chevy decided to buy back all the ones that previously released the Bolts, whether it was on fire or wasn't on fire. They just decided to buy them back or give you the option to upgrade to the new one. The new one, supposedly, they resolved the situation with the fire problem.
My sister-in-law has the Hyundai Kona. It's been in the shop and she's been driving a loader waiting for a new battery.
A friend of mine's got it. He loves it. He's going to get the new one for just swap it, give the old one back in, get the new one, which gets more mileage and everything.
When I first saw the hydrogen, Toyota had the hydrogen car at the San Francisco Car Show and said, okay, didn't look like a bad deal price. It included like 3 years worth of free fuel, except you could only fuel at 6
Are we
places.
still
in the Bay
recording?
Area. Yes, we are.
One in the
Let's
LA
cut the
area.
recording.
Okay, let's stop the recording. I'll go to the gallery view. And we'll say, bye-bye, everybody.